The Generations kindergarten curriculum just released, and when I mean just, I mean I pre-ordered it and got it in the mail this morning. I've already read through quite a bit of it and wanted to let you know what you can expect if you're planning on ordering the Generations kindergarten curriculum set. My first letters and sounds is broken up into a couple different parts, but the first thing to know is that it does take a very phonetic approach, as opposed to the Orton-Gillingham method that I prefer, that is used by like All About Reading or All About Spelling. I'll get into that in a little bit. This is very much phonics, probably the way you grew up in public school. That's the approach that's going to be taken here. It is designed to be done over 25 weeks. There are 5-day-a-week lesson plan in the front that you can be checking off as you go. The lessons are supposed to be about 10 to 15 minutes, and with them only being like one page front and back or side by side that you would be doing, that seems very accurate. We start off with just letter recognition. You're not even really doing sounds here. You're just saying this is the letter R. Can you recognize the capital R, the lowercase r, and then tell it apart from other letters as well. When you get to lesson 33, now you are going to be introducing those sounds. So D says D. D makes a sound like in the word door or dance, and then again you are working on them. Again, Generations tends to have a spiral approach, and that is very much what this book is doing here. The letter O, you are just teaching the short sound for O. In this case, we're using it with the word olive and otter. So O says ah, but that's not really true. And I want to show you my card for O from All About Spelling. In All About Spelling or All About Reading, you teach your kids this letter says ah, o, oo, and they memorize that. When they see this, they say ah, o, oo, for ah for odd, o for open, oo for to, and for oven. And so the interesting thing here is that the first verse that they have you read to your kid that uses a lot of O's in it has examples of all of these different sounds and of O right in it. So I think this is like instantly really confusing to say that O says ah, but then instantly say the of, to, behold. It doesn't even say ah in any of those situations, and yet that's what you're reading to your kids right away. And so my preferred method is going with something like All About Reading. This is a phonetic approach. You're going with the short vowel sound first, and later on it will introduce others too. After they've learned all of their letter sounds, the short sounds or the basic sounds, now we're getting into your vowels. So they are teaching vowels and consonants separately as well, and how to make the vowel sound say its name. So here we have vowel, consonant, vowel. VCV is how it's used. And then it's going to go through other examples of this as well, like blends. A-I, A-Y. Yeah, so there's a little bit more practice there before you move on to learning your next one, which is with the E's, E-A, and so forth. So you're going to be working on how to make those letters say their long names. Next, we go on to consonant blends. This is lesson 88. And so you're doing the BL blend, CL blend, TR, a bunch of those. When you get to lesson 113, now you are doing those digraph blends. So your CH, SH, TH, PH, those are all going to be at the end of the book. Yes, I believe that your child will learn how to read using this. This is a great, fun book to do with your kids when they're little, just needing those short lessons and introductory to letters. It is not my preferred method, but that doesn't mean that it's wrong. I just found this. So one of my major issues with a lot of phonics curriculums is that they will teach your kids that R says R does not say it says R, like rose. And this book doesn't like show a spelling for how to pronounce the R. So it's really going to leave it up to the parent on how they're going to teach their kids to pronounce that R sound. But it also doesn't say and that makes me really happy. Generation's goal in teaching reading and what they will be reading in the future is to get your kids reading the Bible. They want your kids in God's Word. And so to go along with their kindergarten lesson, they want you to be using Teach Me the Faith. This is a children's catechism, and you can get it in different versions. So King James, I believe New King James, and ESV is what I have selected. It starts off with just a question: who made you? Know that the Lord, He is God. It is He who made us. We are His. We are His people and the sheep of His pasture. Psalm 100, verse 3. And so then after you've learned that one, you go on to the next one, and your kids are going to learn some really good theology going through this with them. They can be memorizing those scriptures, or you can skip around. One thing, we've actually had this one for a while because this one came out earlier in the spring. A cute thing that my kids have ended up doing with this: one of my sons decided when he grows up, he wants to be a pastor. Mom, how do I write sermons? How do I tell people about God? They even have a little kids club, and he is the pastor of that kids club. And I was like, well, buddy, you should really go use this to write your sermons. Who has sinned? For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Like, that's all right in here. And so he's been using this for his handwriting, even just looking, just writing like the question and then writing the response. We've used this for copy work in that way. So I actually think that it has been really good for that. I don't think that we would actually use it as like our devotional or catechism to memorize. I just think we're going to probably end up using something else. There are so many good things to use. I think this is a great option. It's probably just not going to be for us, but we will keep it around the house because they're using it for copy work. So that works great. My first, history. Now, history is where I think Generations has its strongest curriculum. And this is a great curriculum also for eclectic homeschoolers that are looking for just bits and pieces to pull into their homeschool. And history is one from them that I believe all homeschoolers should do, because it's talking about the spread of the gospel, the story of God's people, reminding our kids that our citizenship is in heaven and that we are part of God's family. And so this is our story and what we want our kids to be learning. The approach that this one takes is really cool in that it follows the story of children throughout history, or not just children, but like maybe you learn about Dietrich Bonhoeffer while he was a child, and then it doesn't finish the story in World War II, but it covers the story of World War I when he lost one of his brothers to the war. And then it just says that through this experience, he learned that God knows the bigger picture, and even though he doesn't understand why things happen, he learned to trust God, and that God ended up using him in big ways later on in the next World War. And so it like gently covers some things. There is this part in the beginning I wanted to show you. If you have sensitive children, or if your children have a history in some of these situations, you might want to be aware of these stories that could be a little bit more sensitive. I like that it points that out there. And then it also has the sources that they used for each of the stories. Most of these are real, true stories taken by biographies or autobiographies. Some of them are expanded upon. So this one here of Betty, I went ahead and read this one because we're currently doing a unit on living off the land. And this is a story of a young girl whose family came from, I don't even remember now, from Germany, moved to Pennsylvania, and then they settled in Canada. So they had to go on covered wagon to Canada. And so this worked really well with what we are currently doing. I literally just got done reading the story. Really cute, talking about what life was like on the trail. And then at the end, though, this isn't a true story. It's taken from an example of like a group of people from a book of a group of people that moved. And at the end, though, it talks about Betty grew up different than other children. She just needed extra help talking math, counting, and numbers. She needed help with everything growing up. Betty's mommy and daddy helped her when she was little, and they kept helping care for her as she grew up. These are talking points to have with your kids, and there are discussion questions as well. There is no workbook to go along with these, but I love that there are these discussions, and maybe you have a sibling in your house or your child even who is going to need continued help as they are growing up, and they will relate to this. This opens up conversations. Do we know somebody like that? The faithfulness of the parents continuing to love and value their children. There are 34 chapters in this book, each covering a different person in history, and all of these people have different stories and backgrounds or how God used them. Also, we're talking doctors for medicine, missionaries, rulers, scientists, politicians, even shoemakers. There is one story I think you should be aware of in here, and it is on chapter 9. It's about Gustavus Adolphus, King of the Swedes. It starts with the Reformation with Martin Luther, and then it goes to Sweden and talks about the king there and how he raised his son to know God from the Bible, to know that we are saved by faith, not by works. And it talks about specifically Catholic rulers in Europe went to war with Protestant rulers. Catholic leaders in Germany plotted against Sweden too. Now, this young boy who was 10, when his father was teaching him about God, he wanted him to be involved, knowing that he would someday become a king. He also brought him along to meetings with other kings in other areas so that he would know how to communicate and how to run a country. And I love that, like, it's showing that father mentorship and leadership of a child even at the age of 10, because he ended up becoming king at age 17 and leading his men into battle, the 30 Years' War. And then it talks about that in right around here. Even leading them into war, they're singing "A Mighty Fortress Is Our God." And then right here, it says that the king did die during this battle, but he was able to protect Sweden. It protected parts of Germany too. It kept German land out of the hands of Catholic rulers. He defended Sweden, fought for peace, and stood strong in God's truth. So you are going to have conversations there about Protestantism versus Catholicism, what the differences are, and why these wars happened. I just thought you should be aware of that. The other thing to know is that if you are buying the kindergarten bundle from Generations, you would also be getting the math book, My First Numbers. That has not been released yet. I will do a video on that when it becomes available. Until then, here are some other math reviews from Generations. I have loved their math, and I'm excited to do that review when that book becomes available. Hope this video was helpful for you guys, and I'll see you again soon.